If you've ever asked yourself what separates brands that are spending thousands of dollars a day profitably on ads compared to others spending absolutely nothing, it's pretty much only a couple things that they have in common. And one of the few is actually that they have really good creatives. And in this video, I'm going to kind of break down what exactly makes and breaks really good ads, how to replicate them, how to produce them, and how to just pump them into your ad account every single week so that your scale essentially never stops. You don't even care about ad fatigue. First one I'm going to break down is going to be the mass desires. It's basically a 3-stage process. There's your feature of your product, there's the benefit behind it, and then there's the mass desire. Your scale literally depends on which one of these three you speak to. Most beginners try to list out features. Oh, this does hair removal. Oh, this is that, right? They don't care. This is why our creatives fail, first of all, right? Most creatives fail because people don't really not even talk about the benefits. But even if you do talk about the benefits, those creatives are a lot less likely to scale than a creative, for example, that talks about the actual deep human desire. Okay, so there's 3 desires that you can really talk about. There's health, wealth, and relationships. And you should always, every single benefit, every single time that you make an ad, know exactly what is the benefit of each benefit and which human desire you actually categorize it towards. So let's say, for example, someone buys your product and your unique selling point is that it's a more affordable solution. You have to talk about the wealth human desire. You can't talk about it's only blah, blah, blah. You actually have to tie it to human desire. And the same thing goes for health, and the same thing goes for relationships. And it's one of the 3. And the more the 3 you can actually have in the same feature and the same benefit, the better it is, right? So if you have an ad which literally talks to all 3 of these mass desires, then you're gonna have a winner, okay? And it's very easy to make ads that have good hook rates, that have really high conversion rates. It's really not about the benefit of the feature. It's actually about the desire behind the benefit. And this is what no one really does, no one really talks about. And I guarantee if you make this change into your business right now, it will already make a big, huge difference. Right? So if you're selling a hair tool, right, talk about, instead of this can heat up your hair to 85 degrees. No. And also don't talk about this is gonna make your hair look amazing. No. You have to talk about the deep desire behind it. What is it gonna be? Well, probably wealth and relationships, obviously. So relationships, you're gonna look good so that you can blah blah blah. And also you're going to save money on this because you have to exactly not go to a salon to get expensive extensions or a wig or something like that, right? So you could talk about all these different things and actually tie it to a deep human mass desire. And this is just figured out by doing the research and by actually having surveys. I just call up my customers to ask them questions about my avatar that I miss, because you can't find everything through research, and your brand will always have a unique standing point and will get unique customers from everyone else's. So you can't just assume that, okay, well, this brand is selling the exact same product through the exact same audience, this is going to have the exact same unique selling points. That's not the case, because you're a different brand and you have a unique mechanism. So you have to ask the majority of your customers. Obviously, you can just send out post-purchase surveys and actually ask them, for example, how long did it take you until you unboxed that product, right? Are you still using it? What other competitors did you check out before you bought ours, right? How did you buy it, right? And the first thing they say on the phone, right, when you ask them why did you buy it, that's usually the deepest thing, what I actually bought. Now, you have to understand one thing, right? Whenever you ask customers, whenever you talk to people or read Reddit posts, read reviews, people always will try to rationalize their emotional purchase decisions. This is a very common thing, and this is not, to talk shit on customers. This is just what happens, right? Every purchase decision on earth, it doesn't matter if it's B2C, if it's B2B, is made emotionally. Every time someone buys something, it is driven by emotions, and they're buying an outcome. They're never buying a product. They're always buying an outcome. And whenever someone asks them to why have you bought this, then they try to rationalize it. And this is especially applying to females, okay? So women especially will never ever tell you that, I bought this to look better, to find a man. Never, okay? They will never tell you that. However, they will tell you the actual features that matter to them. And then once again, it's your job to just figure out what is the deep desire behind that feature. And that, once again, doing the research and guessing, and just obviously just maybe even going deeper on the phone, talking to them, right? Trying to figure out, dig deeper and deeper and deeper, and just literally figure out exactly across 100, 200, 300 customers, what was the number one thing that made them buy in the first place. And all these questions that you need for your marketing, but also realistically, if you look more long term, how to make your product better. Another thing which no one really talks about in ecom is actually having a really good product and customer experience. Now, if you want to survive long term as a brand, you need to work on your product too. And I believe product development is the founder's job, right? So you can outsource marketing, you can outsource, customer success, all that kind of stuff. But what you shouldn't outsource is actually, making a really, really good product, because that is your job. That is you as the founder. You're the face of the brand. So it's your job, and it's like likely you're the one that kind of understands everything the best, like at least the customers, because you started the brand. So you should know the best, right? Ideally, you're a prospect of your own business, but that's a different topic, and I'm not going to get too deep into that. So keep in mind, the very first thing you have to do to make really good banger creatives is to talk about the deep mass desires instead of the features or even the benefits. Now, the second step is actually understanding and applying the marketing fundamentals. Now, this is something which I've probably talked about a million times before, but I'm actually going to tell you now what the theory behind it is, right? So there's the awareness stages, there's the market sophistication, there's the elements of direct response, there's the disqualifiers that you can have in your ads. All these things are marketing fundamentals, especially direct response fundamentals. But I'm going to tell you what people do wrong at this, right? They understand, for example, that there are 5 levels of different awareness stages, right? And there's like, okay, most aware, and there's product aware, there's solution aware, problem aware, and completely unaware. But they have no clue how to apply this. And then when they try to apply it, they execute this the completely wrong way. And then you look into their ads libraries, and they have most aware ads, which are 5 minutes long. And it doesn't work like that, okay? So you absolutely are working against yourself if you make a super aware ad super long, and the other way around too. You can't have a totally unaware hook and then the ad is 30 seconds long. It just doesn't work, for example, right? This is just one example of these marketing fundamentals that you just can't do. Now, you have to apply this actually, and this has to make sense, right? So an unaware hook, right, is going to be the one which drives you the most amount of sales. People think of VSL ads, but then they call out a problem in the first second of the ad. And once again, this won't work, okay? There's barely any VSLs that operate on solution aware or product aware. There's nothing like that, right? So you need a different ad concepts, right? This is what you should test instead. Instead of testing 10 different angles in your ads, test 10 different concepts within an angle. And you will see that you will find completely different audiences, because let's draw something here, right? Let's say this is like your marketing angle, okay? This is all your customers. Like, let's say everyone that is within an angle, everyone that could potentially be interested in your stuff is in this circle right here. Now, if you only, let's say UGC for an example, right? Most people, what they do is they sell potentially into the same country, right? And the main competitors, but I'm not even going to talk about that. Let's say you sell only with UGC, okay? They test some UGC ads, they make some variations, okay, cool. Let's say this right here is this small fraction of this huge angle that are actually in that angle, interested in your stuff, could be interested in your stuff, and react positively to UGC ads. Only this small thing here, right? And if someone from this pocket right here, from this audience, these people do not react at all to UGC, right? They hate UGC, they just scroll for some reason. And Facebook knows exactly who reacts to what within every audience. So your ads are only going to be shown to this people. Therefore, they're going to fatigue a lot more quickly and not scale at all, okay? So you're limiting your chance of success if you're only testing a bunch of variations within one ad concept. Every angle has a lot of money in it, okay? But what is really going to scale are actually the ad concepts within each. And then you can have an ad concept. And to be fair, UGC, I'm not talking bad. I'm not saying UGC is bad. I'm saying if UGC is only a smaller pocket of your huge angle, then have a VSL ad. Let's say this one right here is a image ad. So like an offer focused one. Let's say this is an us versus them. All these different types of concepts, right? All these different types of ads that you can run. So we'll speak to very different types of people, right? And of course there will be overlaps, but majority of people, especially in video ads, right, and this is really powerful and important to understand, will absolutely not resonate with other, like they're in their bubble. You have to imagine most people are in their bubble and they will not resonate with something completely different, even though it's the same mass desire and the same stuff that you tell them. You just have to show it to them in different ways. And that is the way of how you scale in the beginning. It's like very first ad, very first winning ad that you have, right? The ways to scale is not to, refresh it a million times, not to test 1,000 variations, but actually to add in other new ad concepts, ad styles that have the same desire, that maybe speak to the same pocket, but show it to different people, because those people are similar in terms of their thinking, but different in terms of what ad concepts they react to. And keep this in mind, because this is extremely powerful, right? In marketing overall, like if you're not doing ecom, this is important to you as well, okay? So this is, by the way, one thing which I wanted to show you guys here is an example of a brand which is doing super, super well right now. They have around, if we check it out on SimilarWeb, they have around 66,000 visits a month, and they're scaling. So this is a pretty good brand. If you want inspiration for one of your own brands that you've started in the future, take inspiration. There's obviously, don't copy them because they're really smart. But one thing which I wanted to show you guys, and this is what no one really talks about, right? Look at this: 10-minute ad, 10-minute ad, 1-minute ad, 3-minute ad. All these ads, right, will speak to very different awareness stages, even though, and this is the craziest part, right? They have the same primary text and the same headline each. Okay, so it's not about the ad copy. It's really, this is proof, it's about your actual ad itself, the creative. And so I want to show you guys the hooks here, how they differentiate from each other, and why it is so important to keep the marketing fundamentals in mind here. So let's see.
I'm 65, but my skin looks like it did when I was 40. Okay, guys, I'm going to answer one of the most frequently asked questions.
Yeah, so I'm 65, and my skin looks like I was, when I was 40. So that is already a super, super unaware hook, right? It speaks to essentially only a very limited audience of people, because it disqualifies everyone who's not, in their 60s, like around 65. Everyone who's like 40 is going to scroll from this ad, right? So what this does is, this is actually a pretty smart disqualifier, once again, in the hook, because it disqualifies most people that see the ad, most impressions. So the hook rate is lower, CTR is lower, therefore CPC is higher. However, the people that do see this and still decide to keep watching are going to have a lot of a higher conversion rate, right? So this is how you play around with disqualifiers. You can also remove disqualifiers if your CPC is too high and your conversion rate, to find the best combination in CPC and disqualifiers. But that's, once again, another topic. Let's check out the other hook here.
A few months ago, I was at the grocery store when I bumped into an old friend I hadn't seen in years. We're the same age, but you'd never guess it by looking at us. Her skin was glowing, smooth, firm, not a wrinkle in sight.
Yeah, so this is also a very, very, very unaware hook, right? Completely unaware, because the hook really resonates with everyone who's a little bit older, right? So once again, they disqualify younger people, which is positive. That's a good level of friction, because they don't want young people on their store. But they disqualify a lot of people, and then they still kind of manage within 10 minutes to make someone convert this product, right? This is what direct response essentially looks like, and you kind of take inspiration of this.
How I went from this to this in just 6 months.
And you see, this hook is completely different, right? It says how I went from this to this. So like a before and after concept. Before after concepts speak to at least problem aware people, right? This hook is completely different from this one, right? So if you check it out, how I went from this to this, obviously that could speak to also a solution aware person who's tried a bunch of different solutions, even product aware. So this is a lot more aware. By the way, what do we have here? 52-second long, okay? So I hope you kind of get a better picture of how these things work. Now, you have to actually apply this, and it wouldn't make sense to have this hook here where she was bumping into an old friend of hers on a 30-second ad. It wouldn't have worked. Same thing here. This hook here, however, from this to this, if you make that into a 15-minute ad, once again, it's way too much friction. Most people are going to scroll and they're not going to click, and it doesn't really work like that, okay? So you have to play around with when people see the call to action of your ads, and it's a lot deeper topic, right? Creatives is a very deep topic, and there's a lot, we could talk about this for hours. Now, essentially, the very third thing that I want to talk about here is your testing volume, because this is, if you don't have a lot of leverage, these things are leverage. If you understand this and are able to apply this, so you don't lack strategy, you don't lack execution in your business, then one thing which you could lack, one more thing, is your volume, right? A lot of people are just not doing enough, especially if you're in the process of just figuring it out right now. If you're just working on it, if you're just like getting started right now, or just like trying to scale something, usually your testing volume is not where it should be. And you're just going to be outscaled and outbid by most competitors if you don't have a really, really good, high, solid testing volume. So what do you need to do to actually apply this? Well, first of all, you need to be keeping the 80-20 rule in mind, right? So 80% of your budget and your effort and everything goes to the like basically the scaling assets, and then only 20% of your budget to testing stuff. Now, within those 20%, 80% of those go to refreshing, proven concepts and stuff that already works. Only 20%, right, to new stuff. And so what this does essentially is, what like the just to kind of keep in mind, because you're asking yourself, okay, only 20% of 20%, that's nothing. Yes, it is. It's nothing, but you should make that nothing more by scaling the right ones up. Okay, this is why you have to be at a high scale to be profitable, because essentially if you're making 1K days and testing creatives, how are you profitable? Like if you test 10 creatives and you're making 1K a day, you're literally, all your profits are going to be eaten up by your creative test. And this is a very common thing. So you have to figure out obviously your kind of scaling strategies and everything. But then once you're testing new creatives, I need you to really increase it a lot. And you should push forward, obviously keep the 80-20 rule in mind, but you have to test a lot more creatives than everyone else, because an easy way to beat everyone that has the same leverage is to do more, to do a lot more, and not 20% more, but to do 3 times of what they're doing. Okay, so this is easy, the easiest way to do that. However, right, most people probably watching this video will not have that same leverage as some of these brands that I was just talking about, just showing before. If you don't have that leverage, that skill set, that those people in your business that can make these creatives happen like they are, then you need a lot more volume. Like I'm talking 10x, right? If you have no leverage or super low leverage, then volume is your key to actually, first of all, figuring it out and learning the stuff. But second of all, even more importantly, obviously, actually being able to compete, right? So keep your testing volume in mind and try to increase it a lot, but keep the 80-20 rule in mind as well. So the last thing here that I wrote down is your campaign structure, because a lot of ad accounts that I'm looking at right now, especially when I start working with people, it's usually kind of a mess. Okay, so they have some Advantage Plus shopping campaigns, they have 5 CBOs, 7 ABOs, and within each there's a million things turned on and off, and it's a complete mess. So what I do then usually is a reset. I launch an ABO. I launch I launch every single variable that I want to test. And this is, once again, if you're not on a budget, right? If you're already scaling, if you have like a brand that is just, struggling, then what I would actually do is just do a reset and test every single variable that I want to test isolated in an ABO, right? So I do a hook testing thing, which you've probably heard me talk about before, which is just blank image ads and only text on them, only the hooks. I want to see which one has the highest CTR. I test different call to actions on my already winning ads, right? All these things I do in a reset in an ABO. I turn off everything else. We only run that ABO and only see which one's getting the good stuff and which one's not, what's working and what's not. You want to test as much isolated as possible and then only combine the best stuff. This is the usual campaign structure. Now, obviously, a lot of people say test with CBO, algorithm is great, test with interest, the algorithm is not great, right? It doesn't really matter. Essentially, do completely broad. And then when it comes to what actual campaign type you use, whether it's a ABO or a CBO, it doesn't really matter. Okay, with really good creatives, there's nothing that can go wrong. One thing which does happen though in the beginner, if you're a beginner and your hit rates are super low, right? This is something which could and is going to happen realistically, right? Your hit rates, so essentially how many creatives hit when you test 100, right? Let's say it's 5%. That is fairly low, I would say, right? So one thing which you need to keep in mind is if your hit rate is 5%, if you test 20 creatives, right, and technically only one of them would be winning, but that one doesn't get spent because it's a CBO and Facebook thinks another creative is better than that, then you're just going to move on, right? And especially as a beginner on a budget, right, it's a bad thing. So that's why I'm a big fan of ABOs, because first of all, they work better on all ad platforms pretty much so far for me personally, but also I like to literally spend money on every single creative. That's what testing is for me. Testing is spending money and seeing what sticks and what doesn't, right? It's not that, just kind of leave everything to Facebook and say, oh, Facebook, do this stuff for me. me. No, media buying should be your job in the beginning, not Facebook's job. And then actually, because it's still not, it doesn't hurt to turn off, ads. And essentially, once you do find an ad that works, and the chances of finding one with an A/B are higher, obviously, because you spend money on all the ads and you literally see for all the ads if they work or not. And then when you do have one, all the losses, more or less, of the investments that you did in the other ads are just going to be made up very, very quickly, right? So that's why I love ABOs, and that's why I really like to keep it simple. You really just need 2 campaigns to scale really high. You need a testing ABO and you need a scaling CBO. And you just group up your best of the best champion creatives into each CBO, constantly try to scale it very, very hard, and your testing ABOs constantly being updated with new ads, refreshments of your current ones, new concepts, 80-20 rule like we already talked about. But that is pretty much it. That is how you make super good 10 out of 10 banger creatives. Now obviously this is still a skill, and it comes down to a lot more than I've just talked about, because there's essentially, this is just the creative strategy behind it. Now there's obviously video editing and a bunch of different things, graphic design, that you need to kind of learn as well. But essentially it's going to be a skill and it's going to take time. So if you're watching this and you're not where you want to be yet, it's going to take time. Keep that in mind. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with just really just putting in the time, the hour, and the reps, and the money, and the budget to actually learn this. Now, if you want to go ahead and write your main takeaway into the comments below of this video. I think this was super interesting to kind of talk about. And yeah, thank you so much for giving me your most important asset, which is your attention. And I wish you a beautiful day.